Well, let me just start out here and discuss 5 facts about an equine hoof frog. These are facts. Fact number 1, and I've said it before, a healthy horse will produce a healthy hoof. People will say, but. No, there's no buts about it. No buts about it. If the horse isn't producing a healthy hoof, and that means not sensitive, the whole 9 yards, grows good hoof, that's healthy. If your horse has sensitive feet, that horse is not healthy. Whether it's because of diet or it's IR sensitive, that's still unhealthy. It's unhealthy. This horse can go out on pasture, eat, and no problem. I trim her, take her down the road, never have any, not a niche. Even after a trim. And I can show you other horses. The only thing is, these other horses, I'd have to take time out. I'd have to get owner permission and all this other crap. Don't forget, I'm doing this for nothing. So, one thing I'll say, and I'll address the issue about people wondering, what is it about wild horse? Why don't wild horses have to be trimmed? Well, there's a lot of factors there. For one thing, nobody really studies or actually keeps track of how many of those unhealthy horses die, that just die off. You have survival of the fittest out there. The unhealthy ones either get caught and eaten by some predator, or if their feet are that bad or they're that subject to the environment, the diet in the environment, they're going to die. So the healthy ones are traveling. There's another fact. Well, you see people have done studies on wild horses in some areas, but nobody has done a study in which I would consider a complete study, which would be virtually impossible. You'd have to do it in a minimum of 3 different climates, which in climates you're going to have either wet or dry conditions. You're going to have vegetation difference. You're going to have difference in soil and the consistency of soil, whether it's loose or it's so you got wet, you got dry. There's so many factors here. But here's another fact, that when you do barefoot trim, you are only simulating what people perceive as the ideal. The ideal, that most of it is shown, is mostly from dry climates with loose sand and gravel, primarily dry footing. There are wild horses up in Canada that I'd love to see with some of those, because over in the northeastern or northwestern areas of Canada, they have a lot of moisture. So you got a different type of vegetation there, compared to places like Nevada or, Arizona or something like that. So like I said, you're only trying to simulate. Here's the big factor. When you're trimming a horse, there's one big thing you're missing. You're not creating the stimulation that a wild horse would have over that many periods. And you're trying to do it all in one session. So you're totally avoiding and lacking the stimulation factor, the amount of flexing that hoof does. the peening effect against rocks and sand and gravel. Even if you put them on a track system, there's no way, unless somebody actually is on that horse, riding that horse daily, putting a lot of miles on it, in a certain type of environment. And the other thing is, when you know, people say that you should never cut the frog. Are you kidding me? Even in that video, be careful who you hire. That frog is like yay big. To cut all that hoof off and leave that frog sticking up, well, what would happen is, especially in your central sulcus, that would get compressed. It would trap all kinds of junk in there, manure, and you know, it would close up. No oxygen. So when I trim a frog, most of the time I only trim it if it needs to be trimmed. You know, when they start to peak out because a horse has gotten too long, instead of having a nice flat top to the frog, a nice flat coming into a nice central sulcus, when those two sides of that frog start peeking out like this, they need to be trimmed off. You're trimming that hoof. You can't leave those mountains sticking up there. They'll compress, they'll close off the collateral groove, they'll close off the central sulcus. That, and when a horse has thrush. Thrush is almost like a cancer. If you don't trim it out, it will just magnify. It'll only get worse. So, and then, so I'm going to say so far in those, number one, health. Number two, environment. Number three, I would put as genetics. But of course, in the wild, genetics is, there's no human that's involved in the genetics there, other than the fact that somebody maybe has turned out some, domesticated horses, let them loose in an area where there's wild horses, which you know that's happening. But eventually, those horses will die off. They won't survive. Yes, they'll breed. But in genetics, and I'll show you this mare's hoof, the only problem that I don't like about her is her hoof wall is not as thick as like you would get off a nice Mustang. You know, you see Indy has a huge thick hoof wall. So genetics plays a huge part in it. As to, well, size of a horse's hoof, because you see a lot of them what they call teacup hooves. A lot of quarter horses, they got tiny hoofs now. So those are the three primary factors. And then after that, you got a horse's diet, how well they're maintained. So this horse is at 4 weeks. I'll show you how much growth she's got in 4 weeks. Whereas Indy, I trim them like at 6 weeks most of the time. But this horse, I got to trim her at 4 weeks most of the time. Depending, especially like now, it's finally gotten dry here, which we've had a lot of wet weather, which has an effect on certain things. She's not, this horse, if she's on that track system, and if it's been dry, you would see where she would be wearing off her breakover, which she hasn't, only because of the wet. It's been extremely wet here. So that's the type of hoof you would get up in British Columbia, Canada, horses in wet conditions. But they have a lot of stone up there too, so I can't say because I haven't actually documented it, and I don't know anybody that has. The BLM actually has the best opportunity to document a lot of this stuff, but there's another fact there too. Those horses are being rounded up by helicopters. How long they chase those horses is going to have a huge effect on what that horse's hoof looks like when they're trapped. That amount of stimulation, different than normal stimulation, can affect a horse's hoof tremendously. So it's not written in stone. It is what you got. Look at the horse, what you got. And that's the fact. You deal with what you have on an individual basis. So I'll take you down below and I'll just give you a quick look at what she looks like and explain a couple things. So I'll show you here, and like I said, because it's been really wet, she's not wearing her breakover off at all. But when I trim her, I'll bring her back to here. See, here's the end of her bowl right here. So she starts to get this bit of a flap because she's not wearing it on the breakover. You know, everything else is fine. She's got a little bit of flapping here to the frog, and as long as that stays dry, I won't trim that. It's dry and it's hard right now. I won't trim that. There's no signs of thrush here or anywhere. Everything is clean. Like I said, it's amazing how things will change. But this, like this crack you see here, you get some moisture on that, and you might find out that that's going to lift a whole lot more than it is right now. So depending on what I see here, I either trim or I don't. If it's moist ground and if I can lift this frog a lot where it's trapping debris under there, yeah, I would trim it. So I'll show you, and I showed you on Indy. It's already thicker than the thickness of the rasp. She's got about, a good 5/16 of an inch of height there. So this is when I trim her. But you see her hoof wall isn't as thick, and that's genetics. But this is a healthy horse. Other than the fact that, you know, she was overweight and stuff, but even still, her being overweight, she doesn't have any kind of problems with it. She goes out, she eats everything else that everybody else eats and never has any problems with it.